Well, this IEM is not a general target adherence project. This is something different and unique. You might like it a lot and you might not. It didn't resonate that well with my preference, yet I picked it up more often than I anticipated. Let's start with the subjective impression. The sub bass is there, not anything that steals the show. The texture was there, but a bit blunted. The amplitude was not high either. It won't give you a ethereal experience in the sense where it feels like it is room filling. I think it is on the tasteful side of things and not overly boosted to showcase the capabilities of the IM much. Even when the tracks call for it, it doesn't just boom with the sub bass. It just politely sits there and it sits comfortably. The mid bass is also on the flatter side of things. It does have great cohesiveness and overall low end, but it's not elevated too much. Again, I would like to use the word tasteful again. The attack and decay are very natural and might lack a extra bit of dynamics in the character of the sound. Neutrality lovers will absolutely love this IEM in the low end, especially the thump though might be missing thing for some. It was not the case for me, but I know that some of you couldn't justify the low end, but it was enough for me. Now it becomes a quite impressive in the mid range. The lower mids are just as beautiful as they can get. Believe me, it's spotless, correct amount of sweetness, correct amount of preference and quantity. Nothing will feel out of the place for any song. Each genre sounds good with this mid-range tuning. The bass never masked a single thing in the mix. Lush mixes sound controlled and scoop mixes doesn't get too anemic. It might not be overly detailed textured, but it is pleasing in the tonality rather than showing off something. 1 kilohertz bump is noticeable, and to my ears, to that degree, it doesn't made any problem. It flushes quite well. Upper mids on the other side might not be that attractive to me since I like a very sizzly sparkly presentation. DX1 was sweet, flat, inoffensive. No matter how harsh I thrown at it, no matter how much volume I dialed in, it sounded equally sweet everywhere. Now, this might not be a good thing for me, but I get that most of you love sweet, creamy representation of the sound for those laid back listening sessions. On the other hand, being safe took a lot of the forward nature of the presence and details and texture out of the mix. Point to be noted here, sense of details, not actual details I'm talking about. Now comes the treble. So it's not straightforward why this IM tuned this way to me, because it's up there with the elevated treble while being dark at the same time. Now this makes a crazy combination of incisiveness with some risks added to its DNA. Let's talk about numbers here. Most of the instruments sound non-fatiguing here since the fundamental frequencies are not that strong in this region, but it adds some coloration to the timbre that peaks through the mix in certain instruments. For example, like cymbal hits. Mainly higher pitched cymbal hits just cut through the mix and present itself. Now, is it peaky? No, it can get hot sometimes in the mix if the treble is too focused there. But what about normal day-to-day tracks like pop or rock? They don't get bothered anyhow. At the same time, the regions that provide details like 16 hertz region are also scooped after the third order resonance peak at 15 kilohertz. Although one thing to remember is here that the peaks are very narrow band and they are very head dependent, so don't expect a lot of universality of this IEM, at least from my review. Now coming to the subjective part of things, even in spacious sounding tracks, DX1 won't sound super wide or expansive. Why? Because it's tonally correct sounding IEM in the lower half of the spectrum. So can't see any trickery here. Everything is tonally correct and far from creating a contrast or change in the tonality that gives the sense of extra space. Orchestras, if recorded well, sound very good, cohesive, but lack that spaciousness effect that we get from tonally deviated earphones, which sacrifices tonality for spatial effects. Binaural sound recording sounds excellent with these IEMs. The center image struggles sometimes, but which I don't know why, but the representation is quite pleasing for a single dynamic driver IEM. Now things like imaging and all, which depends a lot on the resolution here. The images in the complex tracks are clear and spatially well placed. In well recorded immersive songs like Under Verjord by Wardruna, the dynamics to my ears are excellent for the price. They're quite natural. I never complain about any songs in this IEM. You can check my playlist in the description. Talking about timbre and instrument colorations, drums sound quite good with this IEM. Not super artificial sounding that gives extra attention to harmonics in a way that it feels rich. The upper mids might cause some issue, but that's good for the most part. The violin sounds quite good and flat guitar sound a bit mellow again due to the upper mids. Piano doesn't sound quite neutral, it feels like harmonics are a bit masked. Sax and trumpets are quite natural and reference grade. I personally would have liked a fundamental frequency to be a bit higher to the adjacent harmonics, but it mostly sounds totally flat. Now you can see it getting ranked in my ranking list, which I will link below. Now coming to the what I think about this IAM ultimately. Well, I think it's quite unique and might not be for everyone. But if you are that person who likes safer tonality overall with not much colorations in a lower half of the spectrum, this is a great choice, especially for those who want something that can they blast in their ears without feeling much discomfort. I played Radiohead Creep in high volume with this IM, and it's just breezes through it. There is no harshness, which is a reference track for me to check harshness, and it just breezes through it. Uh, I quite like this IM, although it being not my preference adherent, which might speak a lot. Like if you like this kind of tuning, this IM will be extremely good for you. Till then, that's it. Bye. See you next time.